we light our chalice flame, as chalice flames are lit in our brother and sister congregations across the world. And we light it to words from Amy Carroll Webb. We light this flame for the art of sacred unknowing. Humbled by all that we cannot fathom in this time, we come into the presence of what we do know, perhaps the only thing we can ever know. That love is now and forever the only answer to everything and everyone in every moment. Welcome. Welcome to this, our 9th Sunday service from our closed meeting house here in Sevenoaks. And whether you are here for the 9th or the first time, or somewhere in between, you are very welcome. With 9 weeks under our belts, this lockdown should be easy by now, surely. Our routine should be fixed, our focus maintained. Our ability to move through and keep safe should be without problem. Yet perhaps it's not so easy. For those suffering at this time, for those working, for those caught in the larger picture, of course this is nowhere near routine. Yet for many others too, it seems this is the case. Many of us are still finding it frustrating as we attempt to align our actions to our deeper spiritual yearnings, as we seemingly find it harder to make those spiritual connections in the very first place. Our time together now is a time to allow yourself to be. Not just to do, but to be. A chance to find a way through. To think about the time ahead. Wherever you come from, however you came here, you are very welcome. Our first reading is very short. It's from a book, Blood Memory, which is the autobiography of Martha Graham, the modern dance pioneer who died in 1991. I am a dancer. I believe we learn by practice. Whether it means to learn to dance by practicing dancing, or to learn to live by practicing living, the principles are the same. In each, it is the performance of a dedicated, precise set of acts, physical or intellectual, from which comes a shape of achievement, a sense of one's being, a satisfaction of spirit. One becomes, in some areas, an athlete of God. The words of Martha Graham. So let us join together now in prayer. Great Spirit of life, within our hearts and moving among the stars, we approach with powers and capacities within. We call on the Spirit as we seek truth. We call on the Spirit by following our conscience rather than our passions. We connect with the Spirit when we receive a blessing gratefully, bear a trial patiently, or encounter peril with courage. whenever we perform an unselfish deed or lift our hearts in true adoration. We live the Spirit whenever and wherever we resist the habits and desires that are in conflict with our higher principles. Whenever we speak or act with moral urgency or devotion to duty. May the divine grow within us and our spiritual hopes blend seamlessly with the life we lead. If you wish to, I welcome you to join with me in the words of this last prayer, following the words in bold on the screen. Eternal Spirit, may we be led from death to life, from falsehood to truth. May we be led from despair to hope, from fear to trust. May we be led from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, our universe. Amen.
Our second reading is a meditation by the Reverend Marta I. Valentín from her Book of Meditations, A Long Time Blooming. And this is her meditation, The One True Response. Life has been doing itself since it was created. In the beginning, as it is now, it has been about becoming. What does the world wish to become? Its magical secrets hidden among the leaves in the forest, sitting, waiting, being, yearning to be discovered by a fellow traveller. Desiring to be, the world has been surrounded, cornered, encroached upon by an army of doers, relentlessly testing reality. The sin of simply standing there like a forest tree, unbearable, unimaginable, yet inevitable. A necessary rite of passage requiring only movement of the mind. Spirit teaches every day that the act of doing is based on being. They are inextricable. In the being, the leaf falls gradually, to float along the wings of wind, letting itself rest on the forest floor, or be held by another branch, letting itself move downstream, trusting the process, remembering that spirit is the host and the leaf is a guest in this life, knowing in its being that its story is its own history of salvation, even amidst a million leaves in the forest. God calls, Spirit calls, life calls. And the act of being is the one true response.
Our hymn today, Spirit of Earth, Root, Stone and Tree, with words by Leanne Mitchell and music adapted by David Dawson. David Dawson is currently unwell in hospital. Our prayers are with him this day. Spirit of Earth, Root, Stone and Tree. Perseverance is something I'm finding a little challenging at the moment. That persistent attempt to achieve something, the dogged determination that drives so many of us to try and try again. We persevere, often against all odds and in the face of obvious and all too predictable failure. Now, some of you will have noticed my new hobby. Having bored many of you with my tales of photography for many years, I'm now, with little option, learning the new skill of planning, recording, assembling, producing and uploading films. I'm in one right now. However, this is a new skill that takes some time to learn. I try different ideas with the camera angles. I now record different parts at different times of the day to catch the light. And I fiddle with the lens used and the depth of field. And I line the picture up through the viewfinder before I then go around the other side and hope it's going to be okay. I convince myself it's all in place. Action. I record. I read, for example, the piece by Martha I. Then I take a quick look at the finished product. Now, of course, the finished product is never quite the image I was seeking. It may be a little over or underexposed. It could be slightly soft or out of focus. I've often cut the top of my head off in the frame, or a member of the family has walked past the window, which I've kept in most of the time. And some shots are retaken, and all is well. And each week, or each few days, I develop the way I make things. Learning from the previous time, discarding ideas that didn't quite work, building on those that did. And I shall carry on. Now, although videography is my latest outlet for this continual attempt to get things right, it's of course not the only area of my life where I seem to be in perpetual practice mode. And I doubt very much I am alone in this. We are, of course, all still learning how to cope and change with our new coronavirus routines. Whether we're on the front line or we're staying at home and keeping all safe, we're having to learn new ways. Trying to ensure each day isn't too much like the previous, keeping the bits that worked, learning new things where we need to, and our religious and our spiritual practices and exercises are also coming under consideration as we grapple with finding sense to our current predicament. We're trying to find connection. We're trying to find peace. We're trying to find that sense of love to help us carry on. We're not alone in this. People everywhere are finding a need in this time for a sacred connection, for a connection to something. People are seeking prayer. Google has confirmed it. People are searching how to pray. In this time of lockdown and coronavirus, People are looking on the internet and elsewhere to find a way to ground, to pray, to connect. Now, prayer does sometimes seem hard to achieve. Prayer and meditation are an ideal we never quite get perfect. The photographs we see of people meditating always seem to show people in the most perfect state of calm, having cleared their minds of the stresses and strains of the day, sitting perfectly upright and almost floating in a perfect bubble of spiritual stillness. They are not, it seems, like you and I perhaps, trying to forget the essential once-a-week shopping list that keeps running through the mind. They do not have an itchy foot that needs to be scratched. They're not keeping one eye open for the appearance of homeschooled children in need of support. They're not wondering how to remain safe. They're not saying to themselves, stop wandering mind, try and think of nothing, come on, focus, focus. They are in a perfect bubble of calm. But it's not always like that for me. But in reality, we know and recognise that prayer and meditation is hard, and that one of the key reasons for practicing it is to take yourself away from the everyday, to try and relax your mind and your body, to open yourself to a deeper place. That opening, perhaps, needs to be more part of who we are, of our being. What stops us doing that? Is it fear? Is there an underlying worry or concern that might prevent us all, at some point, from throwing ourselves into something fully? Our second reading today, those words from Marta Valentín, read by Janet, referencing an approach to life that brings doing and being into the same place. Marta talks of the need to simply be. The comparison of something allowing ourselves to fall gracefully into being, as a leaf floats gracefully on the wind or rests where it falls, moving on as life allows it to. That each leaf will have a part to play in the greater story. 1 in a million in the forest, yet unique and connecting. And Marta talks of that constant expectation placed on us from outside to be doing all the time, and reminds us again that doing and just being can be aligned, connected by the way of the Spirit. And we know that becoming one with the Spirit, one with the world, with each other in some way, will always help. We simply need that connection to be made. And to find that, perhaps we need to look that little bit further to understand what it is we're trying to achieve as we find our spiritual place. Now, there is something here about perseverance for the opening of our mind, for the location of prayer and reflection, for realising why we look to do it. Now, this idea goes back thousands and thousands of years. In his letter to the new church in Rome, nearly 2,000 years ago, Paul suggested this. Now, I don't often quote Paul. I find a lot of what Paul said quite hard. But Paul suggested this, and I think it's wonderful. Paul said in his letter to Rome, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." And what a great way to describe that spiritual quest on which so many of us are travelling. Do not be conformed to this world. A call from Paul for dissent. How wonderful. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Don't do what the world expects you to do, or worse, fall in line with apathy and selfishness of others. Now, given that Paul tended to try and tell the church what to do, the fact that here he's actually saying, be transformed by the renewal of your mind, is fantastic. Find your own connection. For me, the notion of renewal of the mind just has to be a deepening understanding and connection to some underlying truths of life in the universe. The more you're able to ponder life, the universe and everything, the more you might draw a new life of compassion. Whether to follow or to hold fast is your choice, and a call to reflect on the compassion of our decision making. And sometimes we need that encouragement to just keep trying. We know deep down inside it's the right thing to do. Whether that be prayer or meditation to help clear our minds, or whether it's joining, linking, being. Whether it's generosity and caring to make the world a better place, or if it's forgiveness and sharing to make our relationships better, or simply staying indoors at home to keep people safe. All these things are hard and all take persistent perseverance. And sometimes we just have to break those barriers that seem to stop us, and we must keep going again and again and again. Our first reading from the dancer Martha Graham told us how we learn to live by practicing living. It's only in the perseverance, in the performance of living, that one might develop a sense of one's being. We persevere for several reasons. As I said before, we might just keep going simply because we know it's the right thing to do. We seek to maintain a prayerful and compassionate approach to life, since we know deep down, beyond influence, in our conscience, what is right. We might also, however, keep persevering through sheer, immovable need to succeed. We seek the opportunity to live our life perfectly, even if only in one small aspect. We strive to make the world a better place. Now, we don't know how long we will need to keep this lockdown in place. We have a chance, nonetheless, to face this time not with simply doing, but with a greater call toward being. From Paul's encouragement to stick with it and to follow the transforming zeal of the reforming mind, perhaps we might all share in the need to keep trying, to keep at it, to try for that perfect technique if nothing else. Like Marta Valentín and the leaf and the tree following the call of the Spirit, there is one true response. It's not a race. Sometimes life leads us on other paths. But it is through the practice of living, of just being, that we may achieve some satisfaction of spirit. I ask us now to come together in a time of stillness and of reflection. As we settle our bodies, focusing on our breath, perhaps closing our eyes. Just allow yourself some time to be. To align your hopes for a better world, a better time, to become part of your being. Leading your actions seamlessly. Just being. I shall strike the singing bowl, and we shall come together in stillness and quiet. The stillness will be broken by music to continue our reflections as we settle our bodies, as we just be. Some closing words. Spirit of life, we give thanks for your presence, for light and for love, for night and for change. This worship is over, but our service continues. As we depart this virtual place, may there be peace among us, now and forever.